Hi, I'm Janice F. Kearney, President and founder of the Celebrate Maya Project, and I want to talk about Trevarland Foundation. Trevarland Foundation was established in honor of Trevarland Smith, killed due to senseless gun violence in 2018 at the age of 34 in Arkansas. The mission of Trevarland Foundation is to provide education and awareness of gun violence, raise awareness of gun prevention legislation, statistics on the impact of gun violence in the state of Arkansas, and the health of communities as a result of these tragedies. It's not about making things better quicker, but transforming our culture through education and awareness, where individuals can feel connected, communities can heal and be transformed, and families can grow by sharing in activities outdoors. Lives can be saved. Let's get comfortable and join in the conversation. Gwendolyn Smith Adams. Gwendolyn grew up in the small community of Wabaseka, Arkansas. She graduated from Wabaseka High, obtained her BA from Philander Smith College and her master's from Harding University. But before she was on that path, she became a young mother. She didn't let that stop her. It only ignited her passion to succeed and to give her son, Trevarland, a future he deserved. She's the amazing mother of Trevarland, Jonathan, and Mariah. Gwendolyn has worked with Axiom for over 20 years. Trevarland's mother, Gwendolyn. Hear her story.
Hi, I'm Gwendolyn Smith Adams, the mother of Trevarland Smith. His friends remember him as Box or Box Turtle, and you'll see that throughout the awareness gallery. Martin Luther King said, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy." Maya Angelou, hate. It has caused a lot of problems in this world, and it has not solved one yet. During this time of uncertainty, as the COVID-19 pandemic continues and the raised awareness of racism and social disparity in support of George Floyd, I'm humbled to be here today. First, it is important that we continue to practice social distancing to help stop the spread of COVID-19. So thank you for joining us virtually. Second, I feel your pain. I'm here because of that pain. Trevarland Foundation. It was raising awareness of gun violence in the African American community was just an idea earlier this year. I wanted to celebrate the memory of Trevarland, but I couldn't get past the pain. I wanted to raise awareness of gun violence, but I couldn't even share my story. So how could I help the next mother, the next family, the next community to heal? So this was an opportunity to channel that grief, to channel that pain, and become an advocate for a greater need. One of the greatest joys in my life is being a mom. And when you lose a part of that, there's a space, there's an emptiness that you just cannot feel. Our lives changed forever in 2018 due to senseless gun violence. And I say senseless because it happens way too often within our communities, and there is no pause. So in the almost 2 years, 714 days, on June 22nd, that's Monday, we have been lifted up in prayer and love and support for our family, our friends, and the communities around us. We continue to be amazed. As our family move forward in our healing process, it is our prayer that the Trevarland Foundation is used as a platform for individuals, for families, for communities to heal. Gun violence doesn't just impact one. It didn't just affect me, Jonathan, or Mariah. Gun violence impacts the health of the community, and that's real, the African American community. My faith has encouraged me to move past my comfort zone, and this is certainly not it. So no matter where you are in your healing process, you are not alone. It's difficult to explain, but know that God is in control. With so many families and communities dealing with the loss of a loved one due to gun violence, it's important to know that there are resources available to help navigate the grief and the pain, and undoubtedly the anger and the anxiety that comes along with it. I know. In times such as this, let me say that again. In times such as this, join us in the conversation. Hands up, raising awareness of gun violence in the African American communities. Hands up, use your voice. Hands up, take action, do something. Right now, today, there is no excuse, none. Hands up, vote. With everything that's going on in the world around us today, it is more important than ever to join us in love, to join in unity, to join in the conversation of raising awareness of gun violence to end gun violence.
Mayor Shirley Washington grew up in the small Jefferson County community of Gessamine. She graduated from Wabaseka High School, obtained a degree from A&M College in elementary education, and a master's degree from the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville. Her patience and love for children made her a natural motivating force in the classroom. She retired after 38 years of service in public schools, both classroom and administration. Her goal was simply to make a difference, become a positive impact on the lives of children in her community. In October 2015, Mrs. Washington entered the political arena, launching her campaign for mayor of Pine Bluff. Her promise to provide strong, visionary leadership and to be a servant leader propelled her to victory in an historical election. In January 2017, she became the first African American woman to hold the highest office in the city of Pine Bluff. Mayor Shirley Washington.
It is an honor for me to participate on this platform today as we address gun violence. Gun violence has taken so many lives in our community, has brought so much heartache and pain throughout our community. And what hurts me more in this day and time is that the gun violence is robbing us of our young people, of our talent, of the beautiful lives that could have been, but are cut short because of gun violence. I respect Trevarland, Gwendolyn, and all the others who have brought attention to this gun violence. And Gwendolyn is so near and dear to my heart because, believe it or not, I taught Gwendolyn Smith when she was in the 3rd grade, the 4th grade, the 5th grade. And not only Gwendolyn, but her son Trevarland was the son of Ronnie Morris, who was also in my class. And when I heard that their son's life had been cut short by gun violence, that brought it home to me. So home to me, so close to me. And then the many lives that are lost throughout this community. The most difficult role, or the most difficult part of this role as mayor of the city of Pine Bluff are the homicides. Every time I get a call stating that a homicide has been committed, most of those calls are deaths of young people, and a part of me is stripped away. So there is nothing more important to me than to put a light on all of this crime that we have in our communities. As we go through COVID-19, this pandemic that's robbing us, this blind war that we're in, we're also putting light on the homicides that also affect us. So we must make sure that we are stopping the spread of COVID-19, and we must also realize that the homicides and the gun violence does not solve our problems. It expands our problems. So we all have to come together. We all have to realize that we have to support each other. If you know of someone who has a crime, who has a vendetta against someone, and that they might let that flow over into something violent, let someone know. Talk to a parent. Talk to a police officer. Talk to your pastor. Talk to someone in your community who you feel that you can trust, who you feel will take that information and put it in hands where something proactive and positive will be done. As we deal with this injustice that has been done in the case of the death of George Floyd, we have to realize that we're in this all together. Yes, we're frustrated. Yes, we're angry. But we must make sure that we find positive ways to vent that anger, that we turn that anger into peace, that we turn that anger into purpose, that we turn that anger into something that's going to build us all up and make us better people so that those lives that have been lost will not be in vain. Thank you, Trevarland, for putting a spotlight on this initiative. We're going to move forward in Pine Bluff being proactive, being aggressive as we address gun violence in a very strong and embracing way. But at the bottom of it all, we have to replace all the hate, all the anger, everything we feel that's not positive with a word that I like to spell as that elementary teacher, L-O-V-E. Replace it all with love, and it'll make us a better world, a better nation, a better society. Thank you.
Artist Anthony Tidwell, a native of Hot Springs, Arkansas. Anthony Tidwell received a Bachelor of Arts degree in General Studies with a minor in Early Childhood Education from Arkansas Tech University in Russellville. Tidwell has also worked as an assistant basketball coach at Morrilton High School in Morrilton, Arkansas, and has been volunteering for the South Conway County School District for over 10 years. Tidwell's education and experiences working with young people with behavioral problems helped to inspire the vision and need for the creation of the Cutwheel for Kids organization. Tidwell received recognition from the Arkansas Arts Council and Asa Hutchinson for winning the Governor's Arts Award for 2019.
Hands up, raising awareness of gun violence. Hands up, you have a voice. Hands up, take action. Hands up, vote. Hello, my name is Anthony Tidwell. I'm the founder of Cutwheel for Kids, a local nonprofit designed to help the kids in the community through the arts. And one of our goals is to deter kids from negative behaviors. We do our best to try and prevent a child from being behind a gun or in front of a gun. And we do this by using creative activities that ignites youth engagement. One of those activities is painting. And we had over 20 concerned individuals that want to participate in honoring and remembering Trevarland Smith by painting various designs to raise awareness of gun violence. Let's take a look at the artwork created. wow, I love every one of those pieces. They was all dedicated to Trevarland Smith to raise awareness to gun violence. They were all different colors, but all had the same meaning. So let's not forget, hands up, raise awareness of gun violence. Hands up, you have a voice. Hands up, take action. Hands up, vote. Thank you.
What's up, everyone? I am Poet Ashley J, an inspirational Christian spoken word artist and also an author. I love to believe that I am too blessed to not express, so I love using my voice that God has given me to uplift and inspire others. So much is happening in the world right now, from the pandemic, all the protests that's happening, from the cops killing blacks. And even though it's easier said than done, I just want to encourage you to not fear. Because God doesn't give us the spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. So do not fear, this too shall pass. I am fascinated with our hands and how it communicates so boldly. Hand gestures are international language. It says hello and goodbye. In school, whether we have a question or the answer, teachers instruct us to raise our hands straight up. Church invite us to use our hands to lift praises unto God in and out of worship. When encountered with authority, hands up conveys surrender. In the courtroom, the right hand promises to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Is not the time to be a pretender. We are reluctant to discuss touchy subjects. Words easily rip us to the core. The moment it enters, we are just that tender. Can we stop beating around the bush and get straight to the center? Let's get comfortable in conversation. Speak up. If we don't bring awareness to our communities, things will continue to sneak up. Grab your sneakers. It's time to walk this journey as your brothers and sisters keep us. Looking for a solution, you better seek up. Guns don't answer, put your heat up. Can we talk for a minute? I just want to know why. Guns are the go-to. Why? Pull up on someone, especially when they don't even know you, didn't do anything to you. Why? Black lives really don't matter though. Talking about making America great again, but it's just getting sadder though. Why? Policemen are so impetuous to pull the trigger on a black man without any deserving repercussion. I just don't understand, man. This world could be so unfair. Blacks have been put in a box. Traps are set to take away our air. To figure out how to live in this circle, think outside of the square. Sometimes we have to put our hands up. Accept the fact that we're not in control. No need to step out of character just because someone do not respect our role. If my hands can talk, which they do, it would say I surrender. Not my will, but your will. What do you need me to do? I'll do it. I promise. This is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. See, we say, man, I can handle my own. We lie. Lord, I realize no man can work alone, so help us, God.
Representative Vivian Flowers. Representative Vivian Flowers is a Democratic member of the Arkansas House of Representatives for District 17. which includes a large portion of Jefferson County. Representative Flowers is serving her third term in the Arkansas House. For the 92nd General Assembly, Representative Flowers serves on the Joint Committee for the Advanced Communications and Information Technology, the Legislative Joint Auditing Committee, the House Public Transportation Committee, and the House Agriculture, Forestry, and Economic Development Committee. Representative Flowers earned a degree in political science and professional and technical writing from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. She went on to earn a master's degree from the Clinton School of Public Service. Representative Vivian Flowers.
My name is Vivian Flowers, and I'm the state representative for District 17, which is located in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Pine Bluff, Arkansas used to be the second largest city in the state, and really the cradle of the economy for the state outside of Little Rock, the capital city. And then things changed. So we had economic changes in what a friend of mine likes to call the three-legged stool of our economy, which were agriculture, manufacturing, and timber. Well, with the advent of technology and some of our jobs moving across seas and I think the changes that affected everyone going to a near paperless society, our economy changed. The normal attrition that you have where young people want to leave their small town living and go to college and go to the big city, we lost a lot of our population to as close as Hot Springs and Little Rock, to as far as Dallas, Memphis, and California. Those are sort of the typical places where people have gone. So much so that they call Hot Springs Little Pine Bluff. And what came with a lot of that movement away from the city of Pine Bluff is the crime that we saw in a lot of larger cities that moved to smaller cities during what some of us call the crack 80s and 90s. That had a terrible effect on Pine Bluff. It had an effect on the city in terms of drug use, in terms of loss of life, in terms of the decaying and the lack of resources, because along with that came the increase of population of African Americans, and therefore along with that came a majority of African Americans serving in the legislature or the legislative seats, a majority of African Americans serving in the city council, and ultimately the election of an African American mayor, county judge, and sheriff. And so with that came even more white flight, as they say. And so a lot of the negative perceptions, along with the job losses, along with the changes in being able to attract teachers and to making our schools strong, we suffered. We suffered a great deal. And so invariably, Pine Bluff ended up on a lot of worst places to live lists. And, you know, in many instances, the data wasn't even there to support it necessarily in comparison to other cities, which were suffering from some of the same dynamics. But that is what it is. I want to talk about gun violence. Gun violence, I think, is an outgrowth of everything I just mentioned. Gun violence is, I think, the cause and the outgrowth of what we've seen as it relates to mass incarceration. I just had a conversation a little while ago with a colleague of mine as we were talking about the most recent events around the death of George Floyd, which is certainly not the first incident of police violence. You know, we had our own tragedy with the death of Monroe Isidore in Pine Bluff, who was 107 years old. And he obviously was older and was weaker and had dementia. And what was later in Whitehall, in another circumstance, what resulted in that gentleman who was white that situation being de-escalated and that gentleman being kept safe and the people around him kept safe. Instead, Mr. Isidore was shot by the police. I believe it was the sheriff's office that did it. No, it was the Pine Bluff Police Department. And that sent shockwaves through our community. And I think that in a discussion about gun violence, we have to talk about two things. We have to talk about the value of life, and we have to talk about the proliferation of guns. And I'm going to add a third thing, and that's policy around both of those things. So if we're looking at a circumstance where, particularly in Pine Bluff, but even in the state of Arkansas, which is a very small and a very poor state with statistics that point to low salaries, no housing policy and resources for the poor, very large population of the impoverished, not a whole lot of development or a place where people come for jobs or a place where jobs come for people. You're already starting out with the perception of Arkansas, kind of being a place that's not as desirable to live. And I'm talking, back during the 90s. And so then we had, even in Little Rock, the Bangin' in Little Rock show on HBO. All of that cast such a negative perception, not just for the people who were outside of Arkansas, outside of Little Rock, outside of Pine Bluff, but the people inside. So if you have young people growing up ashamed to, rep their city or rep their state, and then you have people being treated a certain way by the police and communities not being protected and developed and cleaned, you're going to have the behavior that you see in folks who are committing crimes, and the behavior that you see from victims is going to reflect all of that. So couple all of that with this, tough on crime, war on drugs. So listen to the violence that's even integrated into the rhetoric around the solutions. So we have this war on drugs, which never worked. You have this tough on crime policy that doesn't begin with Bill Clinton. It really started back during the Nixon administration. It got worse with President Clinton, and for a lot of people who, lash out at President Clinton now, there were not a whole bunch of folks arguing against his crime bill, because I remember I had just moved to Arkansas, and there were bystanders being shot in drive-bys around these drug games and drug wars, as well as, the gang violence that was taking place, which was intricately tied to guns and drugs and money. And then later on, during the Bush era, that way of thinking about how to deal with drugs and crime, it was exacerbated. All of those policies fed from the top to the bottom this mass incarceration, where in 1973, I believe we had 250,000 or so people in prison in the whole country. And now we have almost 3 million. All of that is changed by policy. Crime has been in existence, crime will continue to be in existence, but think about the exponential increase that we've had and what that means to families. So when a man or a woman gets on drugs, a man or a woman commits a crime and goes to prison, and now you've got mandatory sentencing, so you don't even have judges that can determine, based upon the circumstances, some leniency or even the harshness. You have these sentencing guidelines. That played a great role into us going from, 250,000 to several million people in prison. So that means incomes to families, the possibility of entrepreneurship, creativity, the growth of communities. That affected Pine Bluff, that affected the state of Arkansas, and that's affected this country. And then in the meantime, you have more recently stand your ground legislation. We have in Arkansas some of the most permissive gun laws in the country where, except for a few places like the Capitol, interestingly, you can walk around with a gun on your hip. And we're starting to see that. I was at Whole Foods about 3 weeks ago, and on my way out, I saw a man who parked in the back, and he was walking toward the store with a holster like what we see on television, and looked like what was probably a 9mm gun. What is going on? Crime has decreased over the years. So what is going on where people are protesting at state capitals and walking into the grocery store with guns on their hip? What is happening that we allow that to happen during a time over decades where mass violence has ensued and nothing happens in the way of policy? Not even legislation to prevent people who are mentally ill from buying guns. Not even legislation to prevent men and women who are convicted of violent crimes, or not violent crimes, well, these are violent crimes, but domestic violence, from owning a weapon, even if it's temporary. It makes no sense. We cannot continue to allow guns to be purchased and shared and used and brandished all over the state, all over the country, and think that people aren't going to use them, even when they lose their temper. I was just in a situation where I was on the street minding my own business after a campaign fundraiser over a friend's house for another friend. I'm talking to that guy by my car. It's in the dark of night in a predominantly white neighborhood, and this lady comes out telling us we don't belong there. We discount her. Another lady comes out, the sons come out, and accosting us and harassing us, and then a shot rings out. The police come, they point their guns at us. Now we know that could have been gone way left on so many levels at so many different points in what was about 15, 20 minutes. Then we live in a state where people want to pass stand your ground laws. Even after we saw what happened with Trayvon Martin, and in other places, how that law has been misused. We already have existing laws that punish people for shooting people when they're not protecting themselves. We have laws that require us to call the police instead of running after people as a vigilante. To use vigilante justice. And yet, people's answer to their fears, because it's not an answer to increasing crime, because crime's not increasing. So it's an answer to our fears, are guns. And that's just not the answer. I think that as we look at the growing rhetoric and the growing tide of white supremacy and these groups who have infiltrated a number of different fields from law enforcement to EMT. That's documented. That's not Vivian saying what she thinks. That's the FBI reporting on what is. If we know that, why would we take our country to the brink of what some people are calling for in the way of a civil war? We've been through that. We're one United States. The proliferation and the abuse of guns also puts our law enforcement officers in jeopardy. I have been very vocal about the excessive use of force and police brutality, not only because it disproportionately affects people of color, so that means that, just recently my brother took a trip to Washington, D.C. for a quick turnaround to go pick up some things he had in storage. And I didn't realize how shell-shocked that my mother and I are and have been for all of my life, because during his whole trip, we were calling him incessantly, calling him every half hour, calling him every hour, asking him, where are you? What time? Well, make sure you call us when you get there. When are you getting gas? How much? And it's not just about wanting him to get there safely. We just need to make sure we know where he is, so that if something happened, we would be able to try to protect him. The bottom line is, whether we're talking about public health, whether we're talking about drugs, violence, crime, the economy, families, supporting the growth and use of guns in such an indiscriminate way as we see now does not help our communities flourish. And it really poses a threat to our democracy, to the people who live in these jurisdictions, and to our law enforcement officers. The answer is in the vote, and the answer is in policy. Thank you.
Pastor Robert Holt. In 1994, Robert Holt left a successful business and hit the streets with a vision to reach and rescue a generation of kids involved in or at risk for involvement in gangs, drugs, and cults. Since that time, he has trained thousands of healthcare professionals, law enforcement officers, educators, and many others. Pastor Holt founded Love, Let Our Violence End, nonprofit organization in 1994 to work toward ending violence in our schools and neighborhoods. Pastor Holt is leading the Healing Water Outreach Center, where they are dedicated to Christ's command to love the Father with all your heart, mind, spirit, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. Pastor Robert Holt.
I want to thank you for allowing me to be a part today, to be a part of a young man's legacy, Trevarland, and to help his foundation. I've been on the streets for 27 years working with kids involved in gangs and drugs, and it has not been an easy time of it. The unfortunate part about doing what I've done is that I've been a part or have performed 57 burials of children over the past 27 years. And it's difficult when you see a child that has so much energy and so much opportunity to become who his family has always wanted him to be, to become who God has always wanted him to be, and then his life is taken away from us. I was asked to share with you some ideas or some thoughts that I might have on what we can do in our community to help. And so there are 3 areas that I just want to touch on. The first area that I'd love to touch on is, where are the fathers today? Now, if you're a father, I'm so thankful, I'm so grateful. I'm grateful that you are stepping up to the plate to be the father that you need to be. But there are so many families out here that I work with, that I see, who are missing fathers in their lives. Moms, you're doing a great job. And I appreciate you. I appreciate all that you're doing. You're having to work. You having to take care of the children. You having to take care of you having to take care of everything. And I so pray for each and every one of you to have strength and wisdom to do what is necessary in order to raise your children. But fathers, we need you to stand up. We need you to take your place in your child's life. Now, if you want to talk about making change, then that's one area we can make change in, is that if you are brave enough to do what's necessary to become a father, then you need to be brave enough to stay a father. The second thing that I want to share with you that I feel is important in our community are the churches. See, I believe, being a believer in Christ, is that so goes the church, so goes the community. If the church is not strong, the community will not be strong. The family will not be strong. The schools will not be strong. Organizations will not be strong if the church is not strong. I always ask a question. If a tornado blew your congregation away, if your tornado blew your church away, would the community miss it? Not your congregation, but the community. Would somebody that doesn't go to your church drive by your church and say, man, I sure do miss that place because they did this, 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 and this for us. And that is where we need to step up to the plate as bodies of believers and be the examples for our community. We're divided for the most part. We continue to divide ourselves. If you don't like something the pastor does or somebody else does, and all of a sudden you're going to go start your own thing. So how can we expect our children to change when we as adults are not changing? When they see that we are always consistently dividing ourselves, especially in the church realm. So if you are a believer and you are standing up to say, hey, I want to do something, then feed the hungry, clothe the naked, take care of widows and children, love your neighbors, and love God. And loving our neighbors today is more important than ever. And it's not just about saying love. It's not about putting one of our love signs out in your yard. It's about actions of love. Love those that despitefully use you. Love those that persecute you. That's love. When Jesus died, right before he died on the cross, what did he say? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And that is what we need to be saying today. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And then we need to love them. The third thing that I'd like to share with you is that we need mentors in our community. Out of the 300 mentors that we've had signed up so far through the Victory Over Violence campaign, 62 of them have been men. Ladies, thank you for stepping up. Men, we're doing a horrible job. We need men to stand up to be mentors to our young people in the community today. So if you're not out part of an organization, whether it's Boys and Girls Club or whatever it might be out there are many organizations that you can get involved in. You need to step up to the plate and get involved and begin helping our young people understand what it means to love, to care, to love themselves, to care for themselves, to help others in need, to get their education. We need you. We need you to mentor a child. So on behalf of my little brother Trevarland, whom I love so much, my wife loved him so much, I want to ask you to help us continue a legacy of love with Trevarland and allow yourself the opportunity to help and to mentor someone. Allow yourself the opportunity to help and to mentor someone. Again, I want to thank the foundation for asking me to be a part of this. And I pray so much that this foundation will continue to rise up and to make a difference in our community, to help others see where they can make a difference. God bless you.
Thank you for joining us virtually. Thank you for continuing to practice social distancing, and thank you for celebrating the life of Trevarland.